You stole my heart the moment you opened your mouth." The mafia boss whispered it with blood still dripping from his knuckles. His white shirt soaked crimson. Two dead men lying at his feet, and Chloe Bennett, the waitress, who had not eaten in 16 hours, realized she had stopped breathing. 3 hours earlier, she had poured him water. 3 hours earlier, she had spoken perfect Italian to his mother and thought it was harmless. Now she stood in a Brooklyn warehouse, and the most dangerous man in New York was looking at her like she already belonged to him. Chloe Bennett was bleeding from the inside, long before the night she met Lorenzo Vitiello. She just did not know it yet. It was a Tuesday in February, 10 minutes past 9 in the evening, and she was in the narrow back hallway of L'Ora, Manhattan's most expensive Italian restaurant, with her forehead pressed against the cold steel of the walk-in freezer, trying to remember how to breathe. 12 hours. She had been on her feet for 12 hours. She had eaten half a dinner roll at 2 in the afternoon. Her lower back had started making a sound like a branch bending in the wind, and in her apron pocket, pressed against her thigh, was the folded slip of paper that had been burning a hole through her skin since 4 that afternoon. $42,000. That was the number her 19-year-old brother had called her to confess. $42,000 owed to men whose last name she had grown up being told to never, ever speak out loud. Rossetti. Chloe. She jerked her head up. Gavin, her manager, was standing 6 inches from her face. "Gavin, I swear to God if you give me one more table." "Table 7. No, table 7. Chloe, no, I'm dying out there. Give it to Maria. Give it to Maria." "Maria won't take it. Sasha won't take it." Connor disappeared into the men's room and has not come out in 11 minutes, and I'm starting to think he never will. Gavin's voice dropped to a whisper. "It is Vitiello." Chloe's spine straightened so fast, her vision went white at the edges. "What? Vitiello? The Vitiello? The son and the mother?" "Gavin, no, not tonight. Not tonight of all nights. Tonight of all nights, smile, go." She did not remember walking to the table. She remembered her hand on the water pitcher. She remembered the way the dining room had gone strangely quiet. The way the other customers had started eating a little faster, paying their bills a little sooner, as if the air had thinned and they could feel the altitude. Then she was standing there. The woman at the table was perhaps 65. She wore pearls the color of old ivory and a dress that did not look expensive because it was beyond expensive. It had crossed into a country where price tags did not exist. She did not look at Chloe. She looked at the menu the way a judge looks at a man who has already been sentenced, and beside her sat her son. He was maybe 35, maybe younger. Chloe could not tell because his face did not carry age the way other men's faces did. It carried weight. His eyes were very dark and very still, and they moved across the dining room the way a man watches a room he expects to be ambushed in. He was not eating. He was not drinking. He was watching the door. "Good evening," Chloe said. Her voice sounded to her own ears like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "My name is Chloe. I'll be taking care of you tonight." The older woman did not look up. "Bring me someone who knows food," she said. "Mom, someone older." Chloe heard it. The other waitresses heard it. The 2 nearest tables heard it. And something inside Chloe, something that had been holding on by a thread since 4 that afternoon, snapped. Not loudly, quietly, the way a bone inside a boxer's hand snaps without anyone in the crowd hearing a thing. "Mom," Chloe said gently, "I've been older than I look since I was about 16. May I recommend something, or would you prefer to wait?" The older woman lifted her head for the first time. She looked at Chloe the way a woman looks at a bird that has just flown in through an open window. Not angry, not pleased, simply surprised to discover that the bird was not afraid. "Recommend," she said. And Chloe, because her legs were too tired to run the usual calculation about when to speak a second language, and when to pretend she had never heard one, opened her mouth and said in Italian, so clean it could have been poured out of a bottle from Messina, "Madam, the kitchen here is not Palermo, I know, you know. But tonight, the chef has fresh swordfish arrived this morning, Messina style, with capers, black olives, no pine nuts, no sugar, no offense to your memory." The dining room did not go quiet. It had already been quiet. But something else happened. The son, Lorenzo Vitiello, put down the glass he had been holding slowly, as if the glass had suddenly become heavy. The older woman's pearls rose once and fell once against her collarbone. "Dove hai imparato?" she said. "Mio padre," Chloe replied, "a taormina 61. The older woman's hand, the hand that had been holding the menu, slowly lowered to the tablecloth. "And where is your father now, my child?" Chloe felt her throat try to close. 7 years. She had not said the words in Italian, she had barely said them in English. "Sotto terra, madame." Under the ground, madame, for 7 years. The older woman did not say anything for a long moment. Then in English, without turning her head, she said, "Lorenzo, yes, mother, this is our waitress." Not the others. "Yes, mother. And Lorenzo, she does not carry a single plate to another table for the rest of this meal." Chloe did not understand what had just happened. She understood that the kitchen sent out the swordfish, and the older woman tasted it and closed her eyes, and for the space of 3 breaths, looked like a woman who had just been allowed to come home. She understood that a second course arrived, and a third, and wine Chloe had not poured in her entire career was uncorked at the table by the head sommelier himself. And the older woman kept saying in Italian, "Va bene, tell her it is fine, tell her it is acceptable," which, from a woman like that, Chloe slowly realized was the Sicilian equivalent of weeping. She understood that Lorenzo Vitiello barely ate. She understood that every time she came near the table, his eyes moved to her first and stayed on her the way a man watches a candle on a windy night, as if he were personally responsible for keeping it from going out. She did not understand the napkin. When she cleared the table, when the mother had risen and been helped into a coat that could have paid Chloe's rent for a year, she lifted Lorenzo Vitiello's crumpled napkin. Underneath it were two things, a stack of $100 bills so thick she initially thought it was a bread roll, and a business card. On the front, Vitiello Holdings, Lorenzo Vitiello, President, Park Avenue. On the back, handwritten in dark blue ink, were 4 words, "Come tomorrow before noon." Chloe looked up. Lorenzo Vitiello was at the front door, holding his mother's arm. He turned once. He did not smile, he did not nod. He held her eyes across 30 feet of crowded dining room, and across that distance, in complete silence, he mouthed 3 words in Italian she read cleanly off his lips. "Tuo fratello, your brother dies." And then he walked his mother out into the night. Chloe did not count the money. She did not count the money in the bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall for 4 minutes and pressed both hands against her mouth so that the sound trying to come out of her body would not come out of her body. She did not count the money on the subway home at 1:30 in the morning. She did not count it when she climbed the 3 flights of stairs above the dry cleaner in Queens, where the hallway smelled like bleach and someone's cat. And she unlocked the door to the studio apartment she shared with her 19-year-old brother. Arthur was sitting on the kitchen floor with his back against the radiator. There was a bag of frozen peas wrapped around his left hand. "Sis, don't talk. Sis, I swear to God, Arthur, if you talk right now, I'm going to start screaming. And if I start screaming, Mrs. Delgado next door is going to call the police. And if the police come in here and see your hand, they're going to start asking questions. I do not have the strength to answer. So sit there, don't talk." He sat there. He was 19. He had their father's jawline and their mother's trembling lower lip. She had been raising him since she was 22 and he was 13. And tonight, looking at him on the floor, Chloe understood something for the first time. She was tired. Not tired the way working people are tired. Tired the way a woman is tired when she has been carrying a piano up a staircase for 7 years, and the staircase has not ended. And she has just realized suddenly that it is not a staircase. It is a wall, and she has been climbing a wall. "Which finger?" she said. "The little one." They said, "If I don't pay by Friday, it is 3 more, and if I still don't pay, they're going to come for you." Chloe sat down on the floor next to him. She took the Vitiello business card out of her apron pocket. She laid it on the linoleum between them. "What is that?" Arthur whispered. "Maybe nothing. Who is that?" "Maybe somebody." "Chloe, who is that?" She looked at her brother. She looked at his hand. She looked at their mother's face in the framed photograph on the bookshelf. Their mother in Ohio, who had not stood fully upright since their father's funeral, who believed, because Chloe had told her every Sunday for 7 years, that everything is fine, Mom, we're doing great, don't worry about us. "Arthur," she said quietly, "if I don't come home tomorrow by 3 in the afternoon, you take this card. You go to the address. You tell the woman at the desk that your sister is missing, and you tell her your last name is Benedetti, not Bennett. Say it for me. Benedetti, again. Benedetti. Good, sis, what are you going to do?" Chloe stood up. She walked to the bathroom. She turned on the sink. She put both hands on the porcelain. She looked at her own face in the mirror, at a 29-year-old waitress with dark circles under her eyes and a grease stain on her collar, and a 19-year-old brother whose pinky finger had just been bent backwards by a man named Mario Cangelo. "I'm going to do," she said to the mirror, "what Dad would have done." Then she turned off the light. She went the next morning. She wore the only black dress she owned. She had worn it to her father's funeral, to 3 job interviews, and to a wedding she had not been invited to. She took the subway to Park Avenue. She rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. The receptionist wore pearl earrings that cost more than Chloe's rent and looked at her exactly 1.5 seconds longer than was polite. "Miss Bennett, he is expecting you." Chloe sat on a leather bench for 22 minutes. She counted 22. Every minute was longer than the one before it. Every minute, a small voice inside her chest said, walk out now. You do not know what is behind that door. You do not know what these people want. You do not, Miss Bennett." She looked up. Lorenzo Vitiello was standing in a doorway. "Come in." His office had 1 window. The window took up an entire wall. Behind him, the city of New York lay out in the cold February sunlight like a plate of broken glass. "Sit down," she sat. "You have," he said, 36 hours. "Excuse me. Before Mario Cangelo comes back to your apartment, 36 hours. I had someone check this morning." "How do you know my Miss Bennett?" Lorenzo Vitiello held up one hand. It was a small gesture. It was the gesture of a man asking an ambulance to slow down. "Please, let's not waste each other's time." He leaned forward. "Your father was Marco Benedetti. Born Taormina, 1961. Came to New York in 1984. Worked the Red Hook docks until 2017 when he was killed in what the police called an industrial accident, but which you and I both know was not an accident because your father refused to pay the Rossetti family a monthly envelope. And the Rossetti family does not tolerate men who refuse envelopes. Am I lying, Miss Bennett? Chloe could not speak. Your brother Arthur Benedetti, also known as Arthur Bennett, 19 years old, currently owes $42,000 to Silas Rossetti. The debt is real. The interest is deliberately inflated, which tells me Silas Rossetti does not actually want the money. He wants a body. Possibly your brother's, possibly yours, possibly as revenge against a ghost, your father, who embarrassed him 7 years ago by refusing to kneel. Am I still lying, Miss Bennett? Chloe whispered, no good. Then we are having a real conversation. He leaned back. I am going to pay the debt today before 2 in the afternoon. Silas Rossetti will be informed through channels by 3. He will be furious. He will swallow the fury because I am giving him no other choice. Your brother will live in exchange. And this is the only part of this conversation that matters. I need something from you. What? 9 days of your life. 9 days. My mother is returning to Sicily next week. There will be a gathering 7 families. Some speak dialects I do not speak well. All of them will speak in front of a woman they believe to be my fiancé, and they will say things they would never say in front of another man. I need someone at that table who hears every word, every joke, every idiom, every threat buried in a proverb. I need someone they do not suspect. I need someone who looks, to use a word I am going to apologize for. Paused. Arbitrary, your fiancé. No, Miss Bennett. No. I came here to beg. I came here to ask for a loan, to wash your dishes, to scrub your floors, to work every shift at every restaurant you own for the next 10 years. I did not come here to, Chloe. She stopped. He had not raised his voice, he had lowered it. And somehow, the lowering was worse. Chloe, he said, I am not asking you to love me. I am not asking you to share my bed. I am asking you to sit next to me at a table in Palermo for 9 days, and to translate what men say when they believe a woman does not understand them. That is all. When those 9 days are over, you come home. Your brother is alive, your debt is gone. And I add to that, because whatever you have heard about my family, I am not a man who steals from waitresses, $200,000 cash in a bag the morning you land back in New York. Chloe's hands, folded in her lap, had begun to shake so hard she had to press them flat against her knees. Why me? She whispered. There are 100 women in the city who speak Italian. Because last night, Lorenzo said quietly, on the drive home, my mother told me that the waitress at Leora spoke Italian, the way her own mother spoke Italian. Not the way actresses speak, not the way rich men's daughters speak, the way women who grew up listening through the kitchen door speak. And then my mother said something she has not said about another human being in my entire 40 years of life. What did she say? She said, non la faria ammazzare. Chloe knew the words. Her father had said them once about a stray cat she had brought home when she was 8. Do not let her be killed. She closed her eyes. She saw Arthur on the kitchen floor. She saw her father's coffin. She saw her mother in Ohio staring at a television that had not been turned on in 2 years. She opened her eyes. 9 days, she said, and Arthur is safe not just until Friday. Safe? As long as I am alive, Miss Bennett, and as long as my name means what my name means, no man in this city will lay a finger on your brother. She stood up. She extended her hand across his desk. Her hand, for the first time since 4 the previous afternoon, was steady. We have an agreement, she said. Lorenzo Vitiello took her hand. His palm was warmer than she had expected, and his grip lasted exactly 1 second too long. The way a man holds a match when he is deciding whether to let it burn him. Benvenuta alla familia, he said softly. Welcome to the family, Cara. And at that exact moment, at the precise second, Chloe Bennett shook the hand of Lorenzo Vitiello on the 42nd floor of a building on Park Avenue. In a basement in Bensonhurst, 12 miles south, a man named Silas Rossetti was sitting at a metal table, under a single bare bulb, and another man was sliding 2 photographs across the table toward him. The first photograph was a grainy image taken from a security camera at Leora. It was a photograph of a dark-haired waitress leaning over a table, pouring water for an old woman in pearls. The second photograph was 19 years older. It was a photograph of a man with closed jawline standing on a dock in Red Hook, holding a 3-year-old girl in one arm and a little boy on his shoulders. Silas Rossetti looked at the first photograph for a long time. Then he looked at the second photograph. Then he placed them side by side very carefully, and he smiled a smile that had not crossed his face in 7 years. Marco Benedetti's daughter, he said softly. The other man nodded. And she, Silas said, tapping the first photograph with one yellow fingernail, is going to Sicily with him? Yes, boss. Silas Rossetti laughed. It was not a loud laugh. It was the quiet, private laugh of a man who has been hunting one ghost for 7 years and has just realized that the ghost has made the mistake of sending him a daughter. Pack my bag, he said. Where are we going, boss? Silas Rossetti slid the 2 photographs back across the table and stood up. Palermo. Chloe did not remember the elevator ride down. She remembered stepping out onto Park Avenue. And she remembered that the February wind hit her face like an open hand. And she remembered that her legs walked her 4 blocks in the wrong direction before her brain caught up with her body and told her to stop. She stopped. She stood on a corner of 57th Street, and she pulled Lorenzo Vitiello's business card out of her coat pocket, and she looked at it, and for one long moment she genuinely considered tearing it in half and dropping it down a storm drain and walking back to Queens and telling her brother they were moving to Ohio tonight, suitcases or no suitcases. Then her phone rang. She knew before she looked who it was going to be. Nobody called her in the middle of a Wednesday morning except one person. Mom, Chloe, honey. Hi, Mom, your brother called me. Chloe closed her eyes. What did he say? He said you were in trouble, Chloe. He said, honey, he was crying. He was crying so hard I could not understand him. He said some man named Mario was coming to the apartment and you had gone somewhere and you told him to say his last name was Benedetti. And Chloe, nobody has said that name in this family since your father. What is going on? What is, Mom? What is going on, Chloe? Mom, listen to me. Tell me the truth. Chloe Marie Benedetti, do not lie to me. I am your mother. I am 61 years old. I have buried a husband. I can bury anything else. Just do not lie to me. Mom, stop. The line went quiet. Chloe stood on the corner of 57th Street with her eyes closed and her free hand pressed against her forehead, and she understood for the first time in 7 years that her mother had known. Her mother had always known. Her mother had known the night Marco Benedetti walked out the door in 2017 and never came home. And her mother had known every Sunday when her daughter called her from Queens and said, "Everything is fine, Mom. We're doing great. Don't worry about us." And her mother had known, and she had let Chloe believe that she did not know because she had understood that Chloe needed to believe that her mother did not know. Mom, Chloe said quietly, "Yes, baby. I need 9 days. 9 days for what? I need you to get on a bus to New York tonight. And I need you to stay with Arthur in the apartment. And I need you not to let him out of that apartment for 9 days. And I need you not to ask me any questions until I come home." There was a long silence on the other end. "Where are you going, Chloe? Mom, please." Dove say, "Filia mia," and there it was. Her mother had not spoken Italian to her in 7 years, not one word, not since the night of the funeral when she had pressed her forehead to the coffin and said something in Sicilian. Chloe had never been able to make herself repeat. Chloe heard her own voice say very quietly, "Scusa, Mama." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long, Chloe thought the call had dropped. Then her mother said in a voice Chloe had never heard before, "Who is taking you?" "A man." "What man?" "A man who can keep Arthur alive." "What is his name, Chloe?" "Mom, what is his name?" "Vitiello." Her mother made a sound. It was not a word, it was a sound. "Mom, get on the plane." "Chloe." "Mom, what?" "Get on the plane. Do what he tells you. Translate what he tells you to translate. Do not ask questions. Do not look him in the eye unless he looks at you first. And when a man named Silas Rossetti walks into the room, and he will, Chloe, he will, do not under any circumstances let him hear you speak Italian. Pretend you do not understand a word. Do you hear me, Chloe? Pretend you are deaf. Pretend you are stupid. Pretend you are anything except your father's daughter." "Mom, how do you know that name?" 9 days, her mother said. "I will be on the bus tonight. Keep your brother alive. Keep yourself alive, and Chloe." "Yes, Mom, porta a casa tuo padre." Bring your father home. The call ended. Chloe stood on the corner for another full minute before she realized she was crying. She went back to Queens. Arthur was in the apartment when she got home, still sitting on the kitchen floor, still holding the same bag of frozen peas, and she did not say anything to him. She walked past him. She went into the bedroom she had been sleeping in for 7 years, the bedroom that had once been a walk-in closet, and she opened the bottom drawer of the dresser, and she took out the shoebox she had not opened since the day her father died. Inside the shoebox was an envelope. Inside the envelope was a photograph, a rosary, a ticket stub from a ferry to Messina dated 1987, and a folded piece of paper with 8 names written on it in her father's handwriting. 6 of the names had lines drawn through them, 2 did not. The first name without a line through it was Lorenzo Vitiello. The second name without a line through it was Silas Rossetti. Chloe sat down on the floor. She sat on the floor for a very long time. Lorenzo Vitiello's driver picked her up the next morning at 6. The driver was perhaps 60 with white hair and a face that had not asked a question in 30 years. He opened the back door for her. He said, "Miss," and he said nothing else for the entire 40-minute drive to the airfield. Not JFK, not LaGuardia, a private airfield in New Jersey that Chloe had not known existed. Lorenzo was already on the plane. He was sitting at a small table, drinking something dark from a white cup, reading a folded newspaper, and he did not stand up when she climbed the stairs. He gestured with 2 fingers to the seat across from him. "Sit." She sat. "Coffee?" "No, water." "No, you should eat something. It is a long flight." I said no. He looked up at her for the first time. Something in his face shifted, not quite softened, but reorganized the way a man's face reorganizes when he realizes the woman in front of him is not the same woman who was in front of him yesterday. "Miss Bennett, I want to ask you a question." "Ask, did you know my father?" The newspaper in his hands did not move. "Did I know him personally? Did you know him at all?" Lorenzo Vitiello set the newspaper down very slowly and folded his hands on top of it. "I knew of him, Miss Bennett." "What did you know?" "I knew that Marco Benedetti was the only dock worker in Red Hook who refused an envelope from Silas Rossetti for 11 straight years. I knew that he was, by all reports, a quiet man, a religious man, a man who walked to Mass every Sunday with 2 small children, and a wife who did not speak English. I knew that when he died in 2017, 3 separate men in my father's organization asked to be allowed to attend the funeral, and my father said no, because my father believed correctly that the Rossetti family would be watching the funeral to see who came. Chloe's hands had started shaking again. Did you kill him? No, Miss Bennet. Did your father kill him? No. Do you know who did? Yes. Who? Lorenzo Vitiello looked at her for a long moment. Miss Bennet, with respect, that question is going to be answered in 9 days. I am asking you to wait 9 days. Can you do that for me? No, Mr. Vitiello, no. You sat across from me yesterday and told me you had been planning to destroy the Rossetti family before my brother borrowed a single dollar from them. You told me my father's death was not an accident. You told me you already knew who I was. You do not get to ask me to wait 9 days to find out who killed my father. You answer me right now, Mr. Vitiello, or I walk off this plane and you can find yourself another waitress. The plane was very, very quiet. The pilot 20 feet away in the cockpit cleared his throat and pretended he had not heard anything. Lorenzo Vitiello looked at Chloe Bennet for a long time. Then he said, his name is Silas Rossetti. He ordered the hit personally. And in 9 days, Miss Bennet, if you do exactly what I ask of you, I am going to put him in front of you on his knees. And you are going to decide whether he lives or dies. The plane started moving. They flew for 9 hours. For the first hour, neither of them spoke. Chloe looked out the window at a sky that had become, somewhere over the Atlantic, a color she had never seen before. Not blue, not black, but the color of very deep water. Lorenzo read his newspaper. He did not read it the way men read newspapers. He read it the way scholars read scripture, slowly underlining certain paragraphs with a pen. In the second hour, he pushed a folder across the table to her. Read this. What is it? The 7 families, their names, their ages, their wives, their mistresses, their debts, their grievances, their favorite proverbs. You are going to memorize this folder before we land. All of it. All of it in 7 hours, 6.5 now. She opened the folder. The first family was Caruso from Catania. Old money, older grudges, 3 sons, one of whom had been in prison in Germany for the last 11 years. The second was Lo Bianco from Agrigento. New money, newer grudges, no sons, 1 daughter, who was rumored to be the real brains of the operation. The third was Messina, no relation to the city, a joke the family made every time they introduced themselves, from a village Chloe had never heard of in the mountains outside Enna. The fourth was Romano. The fifth was D'Angelo. The 6th was Ferraro. The 7th was Rossetti. Chloe's finger stopped on the name. Rossetti is going to be there. Yes. You told me yesterday you were paying my brother's debt. You told me Silas Rossetti was going to swallow the insult. He did swallow it, Miss Bennet. At 3 yesterday afternoon he swallowed it, and at 4 yesterday afternoon he bought a plane ticket to Palermo. You knew. I knew. You knew yesterday when you shook my hand that he was going to follow us. I knew yesterday when I handed you my card at that restaurant, Miss Bennet, that he was going to follow us. Chloe very slowly closed the folder. You used me. I hired you. You used me as bait. Miss Bennet, do not Miss Bennet me. Chloe, do not Chloe me either. Answer the question. Lorenzo Vitiello leaned forward across the small table. His voice did not rise, it never rose. Chloe, listen to me very carefully. I told you yesterday that I was going to destroy the Rossetti family. I told you yesterday that your brother's debt was not a favor, it was a door. I told you I was opening that door, whether you walk through it, standing up or not. I did not lie to you. I have not lied to you once. Silas Rossetti has been hiding in Bensonhurst for 7 years behind lawyers and judges and bodyguards I cannot get past without starting a war that would leave 200 bodies on the streets of Brooklyn. He has never, in 7 years, left the United States. He has never in 7 years been in a room I could put my own hands in. The only way to bring him out of that basement was to offer him something he wanted more than his own life. And what he wanted more than his own life, Miss Bennet, was you. Me? You, Marco Benedetti's daughter, walking into Palermo on the arm of his oldest enemy, wearing a ring that says she is untouchable. He could not resist it. He was never going to resist it. By now he is 30,000 feet above the Azores in a chartered jet, with 4 men and a bag of cash. And he is going to land in Sicily 11 hours after we do. You are using me as bait. I am using you, Miss Bennet, the same way you used me. You came to me because you needed your brother alive. I agreed to give you your brother alive, because I needed a woman who could sit at a table and translate a language no other woman I trust can translate. And I have been honest with you from the first minute of this conversation, which is more than anyone in your life has ever been, and more than anyone in this business will ever be again. So I am going to ask you one time to put that folder back in your lap, and I am going to ask you to open it to page 4, and I am going to ask you to start memorizing the name of every man, woman, and dog attached to the Caruso family because we land in 6 hours, and I am going to need you to be ready. Chloe did not move for a long moment. She simply sat there and she looked at the man across from her, and she thought about 8 names on a piece of paper in a shoebox, and 6 of them with lines drawn through and 2 of them without. Mr. Vitiello, yes. My father had a list. His face did not change. What kind of list, Miss Bennet? 8 names. Your name was on it. Was there a line through it? No. And Silas Rosetta's name? Also no line. Lorenzo Vitiello sat back in his seat very slowly. Who drew the lines, Miss Bennet? I don't know. Do you know whose names had lines? Yes, tell me, she told him. She recited from memory the 6 names with lines through them. Names she had not said out loud in 7 years. Names she had found in a shoebox when she was 22 years old, 3 days after her father's funeral. Names she had carried with her every single day since without ever understanding what they meant. When she was finished, Lorenzo Vitiello did something she had not seen him do. He laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, it was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a man who has been working on a puzzle for 11 years, and has just realized that the final piece was in his pocket the entire time. Miss Bennet, what? Those 6 names are the 6 men who ordered your father's death. Chloe could not breathe. Your father was not a dock worker, Miss Bennet. Your father was, before he came to New York, a very quiet, very patient, very dangerous man in Taormina, and 8 men in 2 countries wanted him dead, and 6 of those men are now dead themselves. And I am going to tell you something you may not want to hear. Those 6 men did not die of natural causes. Who killed them I did not. My father did not. In fact, nobody in my organization killed them. They died one by one over the course of 11 years, and nobody in any family in this business has ever been able to figure out who was doing it. We called him the Ghost. 6 kills in 11 years. Every one of them clean. Every one of them untraceable. Every one of them a man who had personally put hands on Marco Benedetti in the year before he died. Chloe's voice was barely audible. My father was the Ghost. Your father, Miss Bennet, was the most feared man in the Mediterranean between 1989 and 2003. He retired in 2003 to marry your mother. He had 2 children. He drew a line through 6 names because he wanted those names settled before he went into the ground. The 7th name was mine because at the time he made the list, my family and his had unfinished business. My father resolved that unfinished business in 2014, which is why there was no line through my name, but also why no harm ever came to me. The 8th name, Silas Rossetti, was the one man your father could not get to because Silas Rossetti moved to New York in 2005 and surrounded himself with 100 men and never left his own kitchen. Your father died in 2017 trying to reach him, and you, Miss Bennet, you are your father's daughter, and in 9 days you are going to do what your father could not. The plane shook once with turbulence. Chloe did not feel it. She spent the next 5.5 hours memorizing the folder. She did not ask another question, she did not eat, she did not drink, she read every page twice, 3 times, and then she closed the folder. And she looked out the window at a sky that had begun to pink along the eastern edge, and she thought about her father. She thought about her father, walking her to Mass on Sunday mornings, holding her hand. She thought about her father teaching her Italian at the kitchen table while her mother cooked. She thought about the night he had come home with a broken nose when she was 7, and had told her he had fallen down the stairs at work, and she had believed him because she had been 7. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone yesterday morning. Porta a casa tua padre, bring your father home. And she understood for the first time in her life that her mother had not been asking her to bring home a memory. Her mother had been asking her to finish the list. They landed in Palermo at 9 in the evening local time. There was a car waiting on the runway. There were 4 men in the car. There was an older woman in the back of the car, Lorenzo's mother, the woman in pearls from the restaurant. And she opened the door and she looked at Chloe and she held out a small black velvet box. Bambina signora apri. Chloe opened the box. Inside was a ring. It was an old ring, older than her mother. A gold band with a single square-cut emerald in the center, and a tiny, almost invisible inscription around the inside of the band. Era di mia madre, the old woman said quietly. It was my mother's. You will wear it for 9 days. No one will know it is not yours. Chloe's throat closed. You can, my child, you can, because tonight when we arrive home, a man will already be waiting for you in the sitting room. A man with white hair and your father's eyes, and he must not know that you are not my son's betrothed. Do you understand? Chloe looked at Lorenzo. Lorenzo was not looking at her. Lorenzo was looking at his mother, and Lorenzo's face had gone the color of chalk. Mama, he said quietly. Come. Mama, who has arrived. His mother closed the velvet box around Chloe's hand. She closed it gently, the way a woman closes a prayer book. Tuo zio, Lorenzo. Your uncle, Lorenzo. Quel, Mama? Vivi? I have no living uncles. The old woman looked at her son. The old woman looked at Chloe. The old woman looked back at her son. And then she said very softly in English, so that Chloe would understand every word. Your father, Lorenzo. Your father is waiting for you in the sitting room. Your father, who has been dead for 12 years, is sitting in my house drinking my wine. The car engine was the only sound in the world, and he has asked, the old woman whispered, to meet your fiancé. Chloe stared at the old woman and she could not make her mouth work. 12 years. Lorenzo's father had been dead for 12 years. That was what the old woman had just said in English very slowly, as if she were reading out a sentence she had been carrying in her chest since 2014. Mama? Lorenzo's voice did not sound like Lorenzo's voice. Mama? Repeat what you mean, Lorenzo, repeat it. Your father is in my house drinking my wine. He arrived this afternoon. He has asked to meet your fiancé. Papa Immorto Ialoso, yes, my son, and no. Lorenzo's hand on the door handle of the car had gone completely white around the knuckle. Chloe watched it. She watched the hand and not the face because she was afraid that if she looked at his face, the face of a 35-year-old man being told that the man he had buried 12 years ago was sitting in his mother's house right now, she would start crying. And she did not have permission to cry yet. Mama, Lorenzo said again, and his voice had dropped into something Chloe had not heard from him before, something small, something that belonged to an 8-year-old boy. Mama, who buried him? I did. You buried an empty coffin. I buried a weight, Lorenzo, a weight equal to his weight. The priest did not know. You did not know. Your sister did not know. 3 men in Catania knew, and 2 of them are dead now, and the third is the man eating in my living room. Mama, why? The old woman looked at her son. For the first time since Chloe had met her, the old woman looked her full age. She looked older than her age. She looked like a woman who had been carrying a piano up a staircase for 12 years, and who was tonight finally going to be allowed to put it down. Because, she whispered, if he had stayed dead, you would be dead too. And your sister, and me, and everyone in this car. He let himself die so that the rest of us could live, Lorenzo. And now he has come back because tomorrow morning a man named Silas Rossetti is going to land in Palermo. And your father is the only man alive who knows where Silas Rossetti hides his soul. The driver had not moved. The 4 men in the front seats had not moved. Chloe understood, somewhere very far back in her mind, that the 4 men in the front seats had known, all of them for 12 years, and they had not breathed a word. Drive, the old woman said softly. The car moved. They drove for 22 minutes and nobody spoke. Chloe held the velvet box in her lap with both hands, and she did not open it and she did not close it. And she stared at a point on the floor of the car, and she thought about her mother on a bus from Ohio tonight, right now, probably somewhere in Pennsylvania. She thought about Arthur sitting on the kitchen floor with frozen peas against his hand. She thought about her father. Her father had been dead for 7 years. Lorenzo's father had been dead for 12. Sicily, she understood suddenly, was full of dead men who were not dead. Lorenzo, she whispered. He did not answer. Lorenzo, yes, look at me. He turned his head. His eyes were wet. He was not crying. He was not going to cry. But his eyes had been wet for 12 years. She understood, and she had simply not been close enough to see. Lorenzo, listen to me. I need to ask you one question. And I need you to answer me honestly, because if you don't, we're not getting out of this car. Ask, did you know? Chloe, I swear to you, on the soul of my dead sister, I did not know. You have a dead sister. I had a dead sister. She is buried in the cemetery in Monreal. And if my mother tells me in the next 4 minutes that she was also pretending, I'm going to walk into the Mediterranean tonight and not come back out. The old woman, without turning, said, Your sister is dead, Lorenzo. Only your father came back. Lorenzo's shoulders very slightly dropped. Chloe reached across the seat and put her hand on top of his. She did not think about doing it. Her hand simply went, and his hand under hers was cold and shaking, and she thought for the first time that Lorenzo Vitiello was not a monster, and was not a savior, and was not a mafia boss. Lorenzo Vitiello was a man who had just been told in a moving car on the road between Palermo Airport and the house he had grown up in that he had buried his father for nothing. I'll do it, Chloe whispered. Do what? Be your fiancé tonight, for your father, for whoever is in that sitting room. I will put this ring on, and I will walk in, and I will lock in, and I will not blink, and I will not hesitate, and I will not break because you did not know. And if you did not know, then you are not using me tonight. Tonight we are both being used. And I can do tonight if you can do tonight. Lorenzo looked at her for a very long moment. Then he turned his hand over, palm up, and closed his fingers around hers. Put on the ring, he said quietly. She opened the box. She slid the emerald onto her left hand. It fit. It should not have fit. It was an old woman's ring from an older woman's mother, and it had no business sliding onto the finger of a waitress from Queens. But it did, it fit. The band closed around her knuckle as if it had been waiting for her. The old woman, without turning around, whispered, Bambina, it looks right on you, child. And the car turned off the main road. Lorenzo's mother had one instruction before Chloe stepped through the front door. Do not speak first. Do not answer until he asks you 3 times. The first time is politeness. The second time is testing. The third time is real. If you answer on the first or the second, he will know. Know what, signora? That you are afraid. Chloe nodded once. The front door opened. Inside the house, a voice from another room called out in Italian, Maria, sei tu? The old woman, whose name Chloe realized only now was Maria, closed her eyes for half a second. It was the half a second Chloe understood, of a woman who had not been called by her own name in 12 years by the only voice that had ever said it right. Sono io, Pietro. Sono tornata. It is I, Pietro. I have come back. The man in the sitting room stood up when they walked in. He was perhaps 70. He had white hair cut close to the skull the way soldiers cut their hair. And he had a face Chloe recognized before her brain understood why. It took her 3 seconds to understand why. It was because she had seen a version of this face across a dining room table her entire childhood in a different man. This man and her father had not looked alike exactly. They had looked like men who had walked through the same war. He looked at his wife, he looked at his son. He looked for a long time at Chloe, then he smiled. It was a small, tired smile, a smile that had been saving itself for a long time. Benvenuto, he said, welcome. Chloe did not answer. Do you speak Italian, little one? Chloe did not answer. He looked at Lorenzo. She's shy, Lorenzo said quietly in Italian. She is not shy, his father said. She is listening. I can tell the difference. A woman who is shy looks at the floor. What is your name, little one? What is your name, little one? Chloe did not answer. Pietro's smile grew a fraction. Come, bambina. Chloe raised her chin. Chloe, signor. Chloe. Yes, he repeated. Chloe what, Bennett, signor? Ah, he did not say anything else. He simply said ah, and he sat back down in his chair and he picked up his glass of wine and he took one slow sip and he set the glass back down. Lorenzo, Papa. Your fiance's surname is Bennett. Yes, Papa. Her father's name, Marco Papa. Marco Bennett. Yes, Papa. Lorenzo. Yes, Papa. Her father's name was not Marco Bennett. The room went so quiet, Chloe could hear the wine settling in the old man's glass. Pietro Vitiello looked at Chloe. His eyes, she realized, were not cold. They were not warm either. They were the eyes of a man looking at a photograph he had not expected to find in his own pocket. Her father's name, he said softly, was Marco Benedetti, from Taormina, born in 1961. And if she is his daughter and she is Lorenzo, she has his mouth, she has his jawliness, I can feel it from here, then she is not your fiancée, she is a debt. Papa, a debt I owe. Papa, I can explain. You do not need to explain, Lorenzo. I understand exactly what you have done. You have brought Marco Benedetti's daughter to Sicily on the arm of a Vitiello, and you have done it so that Silas Rossetti would follow. And you have done it, I am guessing, because you believe I am dead, and because you believe you are the only man left in this family with the courage to finish what your mother and I could not. Is that correct? Lorenzo did not answer. Lorenzo, yes, Papa, that is correct. Good boy. Pietro Vitiello stood up. He was not a tall man, he was perhaps 5 feet 8 inches. But when he stood up, the room changed weight. Chloe had felt it once before in her life, at her father's funeral, when her father's oldest friend had walked into the funeral home, and the entire room had tilted toward him. Chloe Benedetti. Yes, signor, look at me, Figlia. She looked at him. Your father, Pietro Vitiello, said quietly, saved my life in 1994 in a bar in Catania. I owed him a favor for 23 years. He died in 2017 before I could repay it. I have carried that debt, Chloe, for 9 years. I faked my own death, so that Silas Rossetti would believe I had gone to the ground, so that Silas Rossetti would get comfortable, so that Silas Rossetti would one day make the mistake that brought him back to Sicily. I have waited 9 years for him to make that mistake, and he has finally made it because of you. Signor, I do not apologize, child, do not ever apologize to me. Your father did not apologize to anyone in his life, and you will not start the tradition tonight. Do you understand me? Yes, signor. Good. He walked across the room to her. He took her hand, the left hand, the one with the emerald ring, and he looked at the ring, and something very old moved through his face. My mother's ring. Yes, signor, gave it to you. Yes, signor. Then Maria has decided, Chloe Benedetti, and when Maria decides, no man in this family argues. He lifted her hand gently. You are not my son's fiancé for 9 days. You are my son's fiancé for 9 days, and then you will decide what you wish to be after. That is between you and him. But tonight and tomorrow, and for the 8 days that follow, we are going to keep you alive because I owe your father that. Do you understand me? Chloe's throat was doing the thing it had been doing since yesterday morning, the thing where it tried to close and she would not let it. Yes, signor. Call me Pietro. Yes. He smiled. It was a small, real smile. Brava ragazza, good girl. He turned to his son, Lorenzo. Yes, Papa. Silas Rossetti lands at 7 tomorrow morning. He will not come to this house. He will go to the Caruso compound in Catania. He believes because I have spent 9 years making him believe that the Caruso family is his ally. The Caruso family is not his ally. The Caruso family has been my ally for 31 years, and they have been playing a very long and very careful role. And they are going to open their front gate to Silas Rossetti tomorrow morning, the same way a fisherman opens a net. We are not going to do anything dramatic. We are going to let him walk in, and then we are going to close the net. And at the family gathering on Sunday, the gathering my son has brought your fiancé to translate at, we are going to put Silas Rossetti in front of your fiancé on his knees, and we are going to let her decide what to do, whether he lives. The room was silent. Pietro Vitiello turned back to Chloe. His eyes were very gentle. Your father could not finish his list, child. I am going to give you the chance to finish it for him. But I am also going to tell you something your father, if he were in this room tonight, would tell you himself. Do you want to hear it? Yes. The decision to kill a man is a decision you cannot take back, not in this life and not in the next one. Your father finished 6 names on his list before he died. Each of those 6 names, I am told, cost him a piece of his soul he did not know he had. By the time he reached me in 2014 to ask me to help him get to Silas Rossetti, your father was not the same man who had saved my life in 1994. He was thinner, he was quieter, he did not laugh anymore. I looked at him across a table, and I saw a man who had given away everything he had to give in exchange for justice. And I thought to myself, Pietro, this is what justice costs, and this is why most men choose to live with injustice instead. Do you understand me, figlia mia? Chloe nodded. Your father died, Pietro Vitiello said softly, with one name left on his list. And he died thinking he had failed. He did not fail. He did not fail because he had you. And on Sunday, when Silas Rossetti is on his knees in front of you, you are going to have to decide whether Marco Benedetti's daughter is the woman who finishes the list or the woman who breaks it. Chloe's voice, when she found it, was barely a whisper. What would my father want? Pietro Vitiello looked at her for a long time. Your father, he said, would want you to come home to your mother. It was only then, only in that moment, that Chloe understood why her mother had said on the phone yesterday morning, Porta a casa tuo padre. Her mother had not been asking her to bring home vengeance. Her mother had been asking her to bring home the part of Marco Benedetti that had died on the list, the part that had gone cold, the part that had stopped laughing. Her mother had been asking her not to finish the list, but to end it. She understood this, and she did not say it out loud because she did not know yet if she was her mother's daughter or her father's. Pietro Vitiello left the sitting room an hour later. His wife led him up the stairs the way a woman leads a man who has traveled a long distance. Their voices murmuring above faded into the walls of the old house, and Chloe was left in the sitting room with Lorenzo and a low fire and the emerald ring on her left hand. Chloe, yes, I am going to say something, and you are going to let me say it, and you are not going to interrupt, all right. Lorenzo stood up. He walked to the window. He put his hands in his trouser pockets. He did not turn around. I have been planning this in some form since I was 23 years old, since my father, as I believed, was killed by the Rossetti family. Every decision I have made in the last 12 years, every business I have built, every man I have paid, every judge I have bribed, every favor I have collected, has been in service of the moment when Silas Rossetti would kneel in a room in Sicily, and I would be the man standing over him. I did not expect in any of those 12 years that my father would be standing in that room with me. And I did not expect in any of those 12 years that the woman beside me would be Marco Benedetti's daughter. And I did not expect, and this is the part I am struggling with, Chloe, so please let me finish. I did not expect that I would care, by the time we arrived in this country, whether the woman beside me made it home alive. He turned around, his eyes were wet again. I lied to you yesterday. About what? About the $200,000. There is no $200,000. There is $400,000. I was going to tell you on the plane back. I did not want you to think I was buying your silence. I wanted you to think I was compensating your time. I see now there is no difference and I am sorry. Lorenzo, there is more. More what? More I lied about, Chloe. The folder I gave you on the plane, the 7 families, 6 of them are real, the 7th is not. The 7th is Rossetti. Yes, what about Rossetti is not real? Lorenzo took a breath. Silas Rossetti is not a Rossetti. What? He is not Italian, he is not Sicilian. He was born in New Jersey in 1958. He is named Stephen Rowe on his actual birth certificate, and he invented a Sicilian family history in 1981 when he realized there was more money in pretending to be connected to the old world than there was in being a kid from Newark. He bought a name, he bought a dialect, he bought a history, and for 45 years every family he has operated around, including mine, has believed the lie. Your father was the only man who ever figured it out. Your father was going to expose him. That is why your father died. Chloe, not for money, not for pride, for a name, for exposing that Silas Rossetti was never a Rossetti at all. Chloe sat down. She sat down slowly like a person who has just been handed a large and fragile piece of glass. Lorenzo, yes. Does your father know this? My father knows this. My father has known this since 1994. Did Silas know that Pietro knows? No. Does Silas know Pietro is alive? No. Lorenzo, yes. What is Sunday, actually? Lorenzo looked at her, and for the first time since the plane, his face did something she had never seen before. It moved, it opened. It became a face that belonged to a human being and not a chess player. Sunday, he said quietly, is when we are going to make Silas Rossetti tell 7 families with his own mouth that his real name is Stephen Rowe, and after he tells them, he will not need to be killed because every family in the Mediterranean will kill him for us, for the insult, for 45 years of pretending to be one of them, and if he won't tell them, he will. Chloe, how do you know? Because your father, Lorenzo said, left me one more gift before he died. What gift? Lorenzo reached into his inside jacket pocket. He took out a small, worn leather notebook. He placed it on the table between them. This was delivered to my father's house in 2015, he said, by a quiet man in a gray coat. He did not give a name, he simply said, Marco sends this. It is not finished yet, but when it is, you will know what to do with it. My father never opened it. My father, as it happens, was already planning his own death at that point, and he did not wish to carry any more weight. He gave it to me 6 months later. I have carried it for 11 years. I have read every page 4 times. I memorized the pages the year I turned 30. And Chloe, I have not shown it to another human being in my life. Not my mother, not my father, not any of the men who work for me, only you tonight. Because your father wrote it, and because your name is on the first page. Chloe's hand moved toward the notebook and stopped. What is it, Lorenzo? Lorenzo looked at her. It is a confession, Chloe, signed by Stephen Rowe in 2003 in exchange for a favor your father did him. Your father kept it. Your father knew the entire time exactly who Silas Rossetti really was. And on Sunday, if you choose, you are going to walk into that room and you are going to set this notebook on the table in front of 7 families. And you are going to open it to the first page. And you are going to read out loud in perfect Italian the first line. What is the first line, Lorenzo? Lorenzo smiled very, very faintly. Mi chiamo Stephen Rowe, nato in Newark, New Jersey. My name is Stephen Rowe. I was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1958, and I have lied to all of you for 22 years. The fire in the old hearth popped once. Chloe Bennett, Marco Benedetti's daughter, looked down at the notebook on the table, and then, very slowly, she reached out and she opened it. The first page of the notebook was not what Chloe had expected. It was not a confession, not yet. The first page was a single handwritten sentence in her father's handwriting, the handwriting she had not seen in 7 years, and the sentence read, "For my daughter, if she ever decides she wants the truth." Chloe closed the notebook. She closed it slowly without turning another page, and she set it back down on the table between herself and Lorenzo, and she did not speak for a long time. Lorenzo, yes, my father wrote this for me, yes. How long have you known? Since the year I turned 30, since I memorized the pages, 5 years. 5 years and you did not find me. Chloe, I could not have found you. I had no photograph, I had no address. Your father in this notebook does not write your name in full. He writes 3 letters. He was protecting you. If I had walked into New York 5 years ago asking for Marco Benedetti's daughter named Chloe, I would have led every enemy your father ever made straight to your door. I waited. I waited because I believed your father knew what he was doing. I waited, and then 2 nights ago, a woman in a black apron walked up to my mother's table, in a restaurant I have never set foot in, and she spoke Sicilian the way your father spoke Sicilian, and she wore her hair the way your father wore his hair when he was a boy in Taormina. And I looked at her across a dining room and I thought, Santo Dio. There is Chloe. Chloe had to press her palm against her mouth for a moment. Lorenzo, yes. Why did you not tell me this on the plane? Because I did not know on the plane if you would believe me. I did not know on the plane if you would think I was manipulating you. I did not know on the plane if my father was alive. Chloe, please understand. I have been holding this notebook for 5 years, and I have had no one in the world I could say any of this to. Not my mother, not my men, not a priest. I was going to tell you tonight regardless, but I did not expect my father to be in the sitting room when we arrived. And I did not expect my hand to be shaking right now. And he stopped. He turned his face away. Chloe watched him, and she realized something she had not realized before. Lorenzo Vitiello was not an older man playing a game with a younger woman. Lorenzo Vitiello was a 35-year-old man who had been alone in a room with his father's coffin for 12 years, and who was now tonight, in the span of 4 hours, being asked to believe that the coffin had been empty, that the list had been waiting, that the waitress was Chloe, and that the reckoning he had been building his entire adult life was finally in motion, and the only other person in the room who understood any of it was a woman he had met 2 nights ago. She stood up. She walked over to him. She did not touch him, she simply stood beside him. Lorenzo, yes, Chloe, I believe you. He nodded once without turning. Thank you. And I am not going to read the notebook tonight. All right, I'm going to read it on Saturday, the night before the gathering. I want my father's words in my mouth when I walk into that room. Not before. I do not want the notebook to live inside me for 3 days. I want it to live inside me for 1 night, do you understand? I understand. Lorenzo, yes, one more thing, ask. She took a breath. When this is over, and if I am alive, I want the notebook. He looked at her for a long moment, and then he did something she had not expected. He picked up the notebook from the table, and he placed it in her hands there then. That night. It was never mine, Chloe. She slept that night in a bedroom that had belonged to Lorenzo's dead sister, or she lay in the bed in that room for 6 hours with her eyes open and counted the cracks in the ceiling. Maria had put her there, had walked her up a flight of stairs, had opened a door, had said in Italian, this was our Chiara's room. She was 22 when she left us. She would have liked you, sleep, and had kissed Chloe on the forehead, the way a mother kisses a daughter, and had closed the door. Chloe did not sleep. She did not sleep because at 4 a.m. her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and when she picked it up, it was a text from her mother sent from a bus somewhere in Ohio or Pennsylvania or New Jersey. And the text said only 3 words, he is alive. Chloe stared at the text for a long time, 3 words. Her mother was not asking about Marco. Her mother somehow across an ocean, across a bus station, across 7 years. Her mother had known the minute Chloe had stepped into the sitting room in Sicily that Pietro Vitiello was alive. The way some women know without being told that it has started to rain in a city 3 states away. Chloe wrote back, yes. 3 dots appeared on her screen, disappeared, appeared again, disappeared, then finally, be very careful. Figlia mia, Pietro Vitiello is not a bad man, but he is a man who believes he owes your father. And men who believe they owe do dangerous things to balance the book. Chloe wrote, Mama, did Dad know him? The 3 dots appeared, stayed, went away. Then your father saved his life in Catania in 1994. Pietro has been carrying the debt ever since. Your father never wanted him to pay it. Your father said once in our kitchen that a debt unpaid is a friendship, but a debt paid is a transaction. He did not want to be Pietro's transaction. He did not want you to be Pietro's transaction either, remember that. Chloe wrote, "What do you mean, Mama?" The three dots did not appear for a very long time. Then, if Pietro offers you a chance to finish the list, do not take it as a gift, Chloe, take it as a bill that you are free to refuse, do you understand? Chloe wrote, "Yes, Mama." Her mother wrote, "Get some sleep, baby. I am still on the bus. I love you." Chloe put the phone face down on her chest and she did not sleep. And she stared at the ceiling and she thought about her mother, alone on a bus at 4 a.m. somewhere in America, carrying for 7 years the weight of knowing exactly which list her husband had died to finish. The next 4 days went by the way days go by when you are waiting for an execution. Slowly, too slowly, and then, without warning, too fast. On Thursday, Chloe met the Caruso family. They came to the Vitiello house for a lunch Maria had spent 2 days preparing. There were 9 of them. The old Caruso, whose name was Don Alfio, his wife, his 3 sons, including the one who was supposed to be in a German prison and was apparently not in a German prison at all. 2 daughters-in-law, a granddaughter of about 7, and a priest. Chloe did not know why there was a priest. She decided not to ask. Don Alfio, the moment he walked through the door, went to Pietro Vitiello and pressed his forehead to Pietro's forehead and held it there for about 3 seconds. Pietro Alfio, Dodiciani, 12 years, Dodiciani. Then Don Alfio turned to Chloe. He looked at her for a very long time. Then in Italian, "You are the daughter." "Yes, Don Alfio. Your father saved my cousin's son in 1996, in a market in Palermo, a boy running from 3 men with knives. Your father stepped into the alley and closed the alley, and the 3 men never walked out of it. I was not in Sicily that year. I did not know for a long time that Marco Benedetti was the one who had done it. When I found out, I sent your father a bottle of wine. Did he ever drink it?" Chloe thought about the wine cabinet in the Queen's apartment, the one her father had never opened. "No, Don Alfio, he saved it." "Saved it for what?" "I think," Chloe said slowly, "he saved it for the day he would come home to Sicily." Don Alfio looked at her. His eyes were very wet suddenly. "Bring it, figlia mia, when you go home. Bring the bottle and we will drink it together in Catania, you and I, quando sarà finito, when all of this is over." Chloe nodded. She nodded and she did not let herself cry because crying was a thing she had decided. At 4 that morning she would not be allowed to do again until Sunday. On Friday, Silas Rossetti was spotted at a cafe in Catania. Pietro Vitiello received the report at 10 a.m. by phone, listened for perhaps 40 seconds, and then said in English, "Good. Tell Alfio to let him keep thinking he is safe," and he hung up. Chloe was in the kitchen with Maria when he said it. Maria was teaching her, of all things, how to make pasta con le sarde. Chloe had said she already knew how. Maria had said, "No, bambina, you know how your father made it. That is one way. There is another way. The way my mother made it. I am going to teach you my mother's way, and then, for the rest of your life, whenever you miss me, you will cook it, and you will have to decide every time whose way to use." Chloe had not been able to speak for about a minute after that. She was peeling fennel when Pietro hung up the phone. He stood in the kitchen doorway, and he looked at his wife, and something very quiet passed between them that Chloe did not understand but recognized. It was the look she had sometimes caught between her own parents late at night when they thought she had gone to bed. "Maria," "Yes, Pietro." "It is beginning." "Pietro, are you ready?" "I have been ready for 12 years. Pietro nodded. He turned to Chloe. "Figlia mia." "Yes, Pietro." "Sunday is the day after tomorrow, I know. Have you decided?" "No, Pietro." "Good, good. A woman who has decided before the moment is a woman who can be manipulated. A woman who waits until the man is in front of her is a woman who decides correctly. Your father was the same way." He turned to go. At the doorway, he paused. "Chloe, yes. Your father wrote me a letter once." "When?" 2014, 3 years before he died. "It arrived in my mailbox here in Sicily. I have kept it folded in my wallet for 11 years. Would you like to read it?" Chloe's hand on the fennel stopped. Yes, he took out his wallet. He took out a piece of paper so old and so folded that it had started to tear along the creases. He unfolded it with the care of a man unfolding a bandage. He placed it on the kitchen table in front of her. It was 4 lines in her father's hand. "Pietro, if anything ever happens to me, find my daughter. Her name is Chloe. Do not tell her what I did. Tell her only that her father loved her." Chloe put both her hands flat on the kitchen table. She did not cry. She had made a promise to herself about crying at 4 a.m. in a dead girl's bed, and she was going to keep it until Sunday. But something inside her chest made a sound that was not crying. It was the sound of a door that had been closed for 7 years, coming off its hinges. "Pietro, yes, figlia mia, you did what he asked. I did not find you, Chloe, my son did. But yes, I did what he asked. I am telling you tonight in a kitchen that your father loved you, and that, child, is the only sentence I was instructed to tell you. And now I have told you, and the debt to your father, as far as his letter is concerned, is paid. What you do on Sunday is your choice. It has nothing to do with me, do you understand?" Chloe understood. She understood better suddenly what her mother had meant. "Take it as a bill, Chloe. A bill that you are free to refuse." Pietro, standing in the doorway, was handing her the receipt. Pietro, yes, thank you. No, figlia mia, do not thank me, my child, thank your father. He left the kitchen. Maria at the stove did not turn around. Bambina, yes, Maria. When we are finished with the fennel, we will go upstairs and I will show you the dress you will wear on Sunday. All right, Maria. It was my Chiara's. Chloe could not answer, she simply nodded. Maria nodded back without turning. Bambina, it will look right on you, child, she was your size and she, I think, would have loved you. Saturday arrived the way Saturdays arrive when something is going to happen on Sunday. Chloe did not eat breakfast, she did not eat lunch. At 2 in the afternoon, Lorenzo found her on the back terrace of the house, sitting with her feet pulled up under her, holding the leather notebook in her lap unopened. You have not opened it, not yet. It is Saturday, Chloe, I know. You said you would open it on Saturday, I know. He sat down across from her. He did not speak, he simply sat and waited. And eventually Chloe, without looking at him, opened the notebook and began quietly to read. She read for 2 hours. She did not cry, she had a promise to keep. Lorenzo across from her did not move. He did not ask, he did not speak. He simply sat with her the way a man sits beside a woman at a hospital bed, with no obligation except to be in the room. When she closed the notebook, she closed it gently, the way Pietro had unfolded the letter. Lorenzo, yes, my father, she said, and her voice did not shake, wrote out Silas Rossetti's entire history, every lie, every alias, every fake document, every payment to every official in Sicily and in New York who covered for him, every murder. Lorenzo, there are 41 murders in here, 41, and Silas Rossetti ordered every single one of them, and my father has the date, and the location, and the witness for each one, and he has signed his own name at the bottom of each page as a sworn witness. This is not a notebook, Lorenzo, this is a courtroom. My father built an entire courtroom in a leather notebook and he gave it to your father, and your father gave it to you, and you gave it to me, and tomorrow morning I am going to walk into a room, and I am going to put this in front of 7 families, and the courtroom is going to open. Yes, Chloe. Lorenzo, yes, I have decided. Lorenzo went very still. Tell me. Chloe took a long, steady breath. Silas Rossetti is not going to die tomorrow. I have decided that he is not going to die tomorrow because if he dies tomorrow, then my father dies for nothing. My father did not build this notebook to kill Silas Rossetti. My father built this notebook to expose him. My father wanted the world to know who he was, not the ground. I'm going to read the first page. I'm going to read the second page. I'm going to read every page that it takes, until every man in that room understands who they have been sharing a table with for 45 years. And then I am going to close the notebook, and I am going to walk out, and I am going to let the 7 families do whatever the 7 families decide to do. That is their decision, not mine and not my father's. My father wrote the book, he did not pick up the gun, and neither will I. Lorenzo looked at her for a very long moment. Chloe, yes, that is exactly what your father would have done. I know. And it is the hardest thing you could have chosen because if you had chosen to kill him, the story ends tomorrow. If you choose to expose him, the story does not end tomorrow. It becomes a fire, and a fire once it is set goes where it wants. I know there is a chance, Chloe, that your mother does not see you again for a long time. I know there is a chance that your brother has to be moved. I know, Lorenzo. I have thought about all of it. I have spent 4 days thinking about all of it. And I have decided that my father did not raise me to make easy choices. He raised me to make the right ones. Lorenzo stood up. He walked around the table. He crouched down in front of her so that his face was level with hers. Chloe Benedetti, yes, I have known you for 6 days, I know, Lorenzo. I'm going to say something, and it is not going to come out the way I want it to come out, so please forgive me in advance, all right? He swallowed. After tomorrow, when this is over, whether you go home to Queens or whether we have to move you somewhere my enemies cannot find you, whichever it is, whatever it is, I would like very much to be in the same city as you for some portion of the rest of my life. I am not asking for anything. I am not proposing anything. I am telling you that 6 days ago, a woman walked up to my mother's table in a restaurant, and something inside my chest that has been closed since I was 8 years old cracked open, and it has not closed again, and I do not think it is going to. Chloe looked at him. She did not answer. Not yet, because something else at that exact moment interrupted them. The phone in Lorenzo's jacket began to ring. He looked down, he looked back up, he answered. He said yes, and he said, when, and he said how many, and he said, are you sure? And he listened for about 40 seconds without saying anything at all. And then he closed the phone and he stood up, and his face had gone the color of old paper. Lorenzo Chloe, what? Silas Rossetti is not at the Caruso compound anymore. What do you mean? He left the compound 90 minutes ago. He told Don Alfio he was going back to his hotel. He did not go back to his hotel. He has disappeared. Don Alfio's men cannot find him. My men cannot find him. He is somewhere in Sicily right now, and we do not know where. Chloe felt her stomach drop. Lorenzo, how did he know? How did he know what? How did he know to run? Lorenzo's face, if it was possible, went one shade paler. Chloe, yes, there is a leak. A leak where? In this house. The notebook in Chloe's lap suddenly felt very heavy. Lorenzo, yes. Who in this house besides the 4 of us? Besides your mother and your father and you and me? Who in this house knows what is in this notebook? Lorenzo did not answer. He did not answer because in that exact second, the back door of the terrace opened and Maria Vitiello stepped out. And Maria was holding a tray of coffee in her hands, and Maria's face was the face of a woman who had been standing at the back door for several minutes, listening. Figlia mia, she said softly, my children. Lorenzo turned to face his mother. Mama, yes, Lorenzo. Did you tell anyone? The tray in Maria's hands trembled once. Lorenzo, Mama, did you tell anyone? Maria Vitiello set the tray down on the table. She sat down, she folded her hands in her lap, and she looked at her son and at Chloe, and she said very quietly, I told my brother. Lorenzo closed his eyes. Mama, you do not have a brother. I have a brother, Lorenzo. I have a brother I have not spoken of in this house in 23 years. I have a brother who fell in with the wrong men when we were young, and whom I cut out of my life, and whom I believed was not worth mentioning to any of my children. I told him 3 days ago that Marco Benedetti's daughter was in my house. I did not tell him why. I did not tell him about the notebook. I told him only because I thought, after 23 years, he deserved to know that the daughter of the man who once saved my life was sitting at my table. Mama, what is your brother's name? Maria looked at her son. Salvatore. Salvatore what? Mama? Maria Vitiello looked at the floor. Salvatore Rowe. The coffee cups on the tray began very gently to rattle. Chloe felt the blood leave her hands. Loreng, she whispered. Lorenzo Salvatore Rowe. Rowe? Yes, Chloe. Maria's brother is Silas Rossetti's brother. Yes, Chloe. Maria's brother is Stephen Rowe's brother. Yes, and Maria in this house for 12 years with Pietro alive with the whole plan. Yes, Lorenzo. Yes, your mother is the leak. Maria at the table began very softly to cry. I did not know. My children. I did not know that my own brother was the true enemy. I believed my brother was only a stupid man who had married the wrong woman. I only just found out 10 minutes ago on the telephone. I only just found out. She lifted her face. Her eyes were the eyes of a woman who had just understood in the span of one phone call that she had been carrying the piano of her entire life on the wrong shoulder. Silas Rossetti is not Stephen Rowe, Figlia mia. Silas Rossetti is my brother Salvatore. Stephen died in 1981. My brother took his name. My brother has been for 45 years the man who killed this child's father. The notebook in Chloe's lap did not move. Chloe did not move. Lorenzo did not move, and somewhere, a long way away, a phone began to ring in Pietro Vitiello's study upstairs, and it rang 3 times, and it rang 4 times, and on the 5th ring it stopped, and then Pietro's voice, thin and old and very calm, floated down the stairs in one single sentence in Italian, clearly audible from the terrace. Venite su, Lorenzo. Chloe, come upstairs. It is him. He is on the telephone. He wishes to speak to the girl. Chloe did not remember the stairs. She remembered Lorenzo's hand at the small of her back, not pushing, just there. Steady, the way a man steadies a woman on a boat, and she remembered the notebook still in her grip, pressed against her ribs, and she remembered that Maria was following them up the stairs at a distance, the way a person follows a funeral procession, no longer sure they are allowed to walk in. Pietro Vitiello was standing in his study with the phone in his hand. He was not speaking into it, he was holding it out across the desk toward Chloe. Figlia mia, yes, Pietro. He has not said a word for 40 seconds, he is simply breathing. He will wait because he believes silence scares women. Do not let silence scare you. Take the phone, sit down, breathe once before you speak. Do you understand? Yes, and Chloe, yes, Pietro. He is not Stephen Rowe, I know, Pietro. You know your wife told us on the terrace. He is her brother, his name is Salvatore. Pietro Vitiello's eyes moved once past Chloe's shoulder to his wife standing in the doorway of the study. His face did not change. Pietro, not now, Maria. Pietro, adesso. Maria, la bambina ha il telefono. Not now, Maria, the child has a call. Maria closed her mouth. Chloe took the phone. She sat down in Pietro's chair. She placed the notebook on the desk in front of her. She took one breath, just one, the way Pietro had told her to, and she raised the phone to her ear, and she did not say hello because she was waiting to hear which language he chose first. He chose English. Miss Bennet, his voice was older than she had expected. It was the voice of a man who had smoked for 50 years. It was the voice of a man who did not raise his voice because he had never in his entire life needed to. I am here. Yes, you are on the other side of a telephone in the house of my sister, holding a book written by your dead father, trying to decide whether the voice you are hearing in your ear is the voice of the man who killed him. Is that correct? Chloe closed her eyes. Yes. Good, I appreciate honesty. Your father was also honest. Too honest, that is why I had to kill him. Chloe heard her own breathing get shallow. She heard Pietro across the desk say nothing, do nothing. Simply sit there the way a surgeon sits during someone else's operation. She opened her eyes. Salvatore. The breathing on the other end paused. Ah, Salvatore Rowe, born in Newark. Brother of the woman standing behind me, uncle technically. To the man also standing behind me. Do I have that right? You have that right, Miss Bennet. Then let us not waste each other's time. Why are you calling me? There was a long silence on the other end, and then Salvatore Rowe laughed. It was not a wicked laugh. It was not a movie laugh. It was in fact the laugh of a 70-year-old man who had just heard something that genuinely surprised him after a long life in which very little surprised him anymore. Miss Bennet, Your father used to speak to me exactly like that, I know. You know my father is in this notebook, Salvatore. My father is on every page. I know how he spoke. Yes, I suppose you do. Why are you calling me? He took a long breath. When he spoke again, his voice was slower. I am calling you, Miss Bennet, because I am 72 years old and I am tired, and I have been running for 9 years from a man I believe to be dead. And I have just found out this afternoon that the man I believe to be dead is in fact sitting in the same room you are sitting in now. And I am calling you, Miss Bennet, because I would like to make you an offer. I am not interested in an offer. Miss Bennet, Salvatore, I am 29 years old. I am a waitress from Queens. My brother is 19. My mother is on a bus somewhere in New Jersey right now trying to get to him before you think to. My father is in the ground because of you. I am not interested in an offer. Listen to the offer, Miss Bennet. No. Listen to the offer, Miss Bennet. His voice did not rise, it sharpened. Chloe did not flinch. Salvatore, the last man who used that voice on me was Mario Cangelo 6 nights ago when he broke my brother's finger. Mario Cangelo works for you, or he did. He works now for Lorenzo Vitiello because 6 days ago, Lorenzo Vitiello offered him twice your salary, and Mario took it because everybody who works for you is going to take it, Salvatore, the minute they understand that you are not who you told them you were. So, please do not use that voice on me. I am not afraid of your voice. I am afraid of the ground my father is in, and your voice is not going to put me there. There was a very long silence. Pietro Vitiello across the desk did something Chloe had not seen him do before. He smiled. It was small and it was brief, and it was the smile of a man watching his oldest friend's daughter do something her oldest friend would have done. On the other end of the line, Salvatore Rowe exhaled slowly. All right, Miss Bennet, all right. The offer is this. I know what is in the notebook. Your father, before I had him killed, arranged for a copy of that notebook to be delivered to a lawyer in Milan. I have been paying that lawyer quietly for 7 years to keep it in a safe and to never open it. 6 hours ago, that lawyer called me and told me he had decided to retire. And he asked me very politely for $1 million to ensure that the notebook remained in the safe for the rest of his retirement, which, Miss Bennet, is how I know the precise contents of the notebook you are holding, because the lawyer, as a courtesy before asking for his $1 million, read me the table of contents. Chloe's hand on the notebook went still. Go on, Salvatore. The offer is this, Miss Bennet. I will walk away tonight. I will leave Sicily. I will never return to the United States. I will sign whatever document you would like me to sign, confessing in my own handwriting every one of the 41 murders described in your father's book. I will add a 42nd, the one the book does not contain, which is the name of the man who actually pulled the trigger on your father, and who is not, as I let everyone believe, a Rossetti soldier named Mario Cangelo. It was a different man. A man whose name, if you knew it, would end the career of a sitting senator in the state of New York. That name, Miss Bennet, would take the reckoning you are about to deliver tomorrow, and it would multiply it by 10, by 100, it would burn down a senator, a federal judge, 3 commissioners, and the entire northeastern quarter of a political party. Your father did not write that name in the notebook because your father did not know it. I am offering it to you, Miss Bennet, in exchange for my life. Chloe stared at the wood grain of the desk. She felt behind her Lorenzo's hand tighten just slightly on the back of the chair. Salvatore, yes. Why would you give me that name? Because, Miss Bennet, if I do not give you that name, your father's death remains a small story. A mob story. A story about old men in bars in Catania. If I give you that name, your father's death becomes a story about a senator. And a story about a senator, Miss Bennet, is a story that lives in the newspapers for 10 years. Your father wanted the world to know. Your father wanted the truth. I am offering you a larger truth than the one he had. And in exchange, my life, Miss Bennet, only my life. You do not ask Pietro to find me. You do not ask Lorenzo to find me. You take the confession. You take the senator's name. You let me walk out of the Mediterranean on a boat and disappear. And I promise you, on the soul of my mother, who is also Maria's mother, that you will never hear my voice again. I will die alone. I will die forgotten. Which, Miss Bennet, is the only punishment a man like me actually fears. Not the ground. The ground is warm, being forgotten by everyone, including the people who hated me. That is cold. That is what I am offering to purchase from you, the cold, in exchange for a senator. Chloe closed her eyes. She understood in that moment 2 things. The first thing she understood was that Salvatore Rowe was not lying. Everything about the offer was real. The lawyer in Milan was real. The confession would be real. The senator's name was real. If she said yes, she could walk into the room on Sunday with a bomb 3 times the size of the one she already had, and her father's death would mean 3 times what it would otherwise mean. The second thing she understood was that her mother had been right. If Pietro offers you a chance to finish the list, Chloe, do not take it as a gift, take it as a bill you are free to refuse. Her mother had warned her about Pietro. Her mother had not known yet that she would also need to be warned about a man on a telephone with a voice like smoke, a bill she was free to refuse. Chloe opened her eyes. Salvatore? Yes, Miss Bennet. No. The silence this time lasted a very long time. No, I will not trade your life for a senator. I will not trade your life for 10 senators. Because the moment I say yes to you, Salvatore, I become you. I become a person who exchanges the truth for a bigger truth. And that is not what my father built the notebook for. My father built the notebook for the truth he had, not for the truth he did not have. Tomorrow morning, I am going to walk into a room in Catania, and I am going to read the first page of this notebook out loud in Italian to 7 families. I am going to read the 41 murders my father documented. I am going to not read the 42nd because my father did not write it, and I am not my father's editor. I am his daughter. I am going to close the notebook and I am going to walk out of that room. And what those 7 families do with the information after I leave is none of my concern. And you, Salvatore, you are welcome to be wherever you wish to be when that happens. If you wish to be on a boat, get on the boat. If you wish to be in a hotel room, stay in the hotel room. If you wish to be in the room itself, I will not stop you. But I am not purchasing your life because your life, Salvatore, is not for sale at the price you are offering. Do you understand me, Miss Bennet? Do you understand me, Salvatore? He did not answer. Salvatore, your father, he said finally, told me no once. In 2003, I offered him $100,000 in a house in Taormina to make a problem go away for me. He told me no. I remember exactly what he said. He said, Salvatore, I am not for sale at the price you are offering. I assumed for the last 23 years that this was a sentence he had made up. I did not know until tonight that it was a sentence he had taught his daughter. Chloe did not answer. Miss Bennet, yes, Salvatore, I will see you tomorrow. The line went dead. Chloe set the phone down. The study was silent. Pietro was watching her. Lorenzo was watching her. Maria in the doorway had both hands pressed against her mouth. Pietro, yes, figlia mia, he is going to come to the room tomorrow. Yes, he is going to come because his pride has made him stupid. Yes, he is going to bring men. Yes, how do we handle that? Pietro Vitiello looked at her across the desk. Noi, he said. Pietro, you said we. Yes, I said we. Pietro stood up. He walked around the desk. He placed one hand very lightly on the top of Chloe's head, the way a grandfather blesses a child. Don Alfio will seat the men at the door. Lorenzo's men will seat behind the Caruso men. My men, whom your mother has not yet been informed still exist, will seat in the kitchen and on the roof. Whatever Salvatore walks in with, he will not walk out with. He will, however, be permitted because this is what you asked for, to hear every word of the notebook before any of the 7 families choose what to do with him. That is the arrangement. That is what your father would have wanted. That is what you have asked for, and that, figlia, is what will happen. Chloe looked up at him. Pietro, yes, Maria is not going to be in that room tomorrow. Pietro looked at his wife in the doorway. Maria looked back at him. 12 years of a fake funeral passed between them in one look. No, Pietro said finally. Maria is not going to be in that room tomorrow. Maria is going to be here in this house with a rosary alone, because Maria made a mistake 3 days ago. And the punishment for Maria's mistake is that she is not going to be present for the reckoning of the brother she loved. That is Maria's punishment. And I, who owe my wife 38 years of my life, am going to leave her in this house tomorrow and walk out the door, and she is not going to say a word. Capiche, Maria? Maria nodded. She did not speak. She closed the door of the study softly from the outside, and her footsteps went down the hallway. And a minute later, from somewhere deep inside the house, Chloe heard the sound of a woman in her 60s alone in a bedroom, beginning very quietly to pray. Sunday morning arrived. Chloe did not remember putting on the dress. Maria had laid it out for her the night before on the bed in Chiara's room. A long, dark green dress the color of the emerald ring on her left hand, and a pair of shoes that fit as if they had been waiting for her, and a small silver cross on a chain that Maria had placed without a word on top of the dress. The cross, Chloe had understood, had been Chiara's. At 7 in the morning, she was in the back of a car with Lorenzo and Pietro. At 8, they arrived at the Caruso compound in Catania. At 8:15, the 7 families began to arrive. Don Alfio greeted each of them at the door. He greeted them the way a man greets brothers he has not seen in a long time. And each of them, the Lobiancos, the Messinas, the Romanos, the D'Angelos, the Ferraros, the Carusos themselves, looked at Chloe standing beside Lorenzo with the ring on her hand, and the small silver cross at her throat. And each of them bowed slightly, because word had traveled through every family in Sicily by Friday evening that Pietro Vitiello was alive, and that the woman standing beside his son was the daughter of Marco Benedetti, and that whatever was going to happen on Sunday was going to be, in one way or another, history. At 9, Salvatore Rowe arrived. He walked in alone. He had no men with him. He had left them, apparently, somewhere outside, the way an old lion leaves his pride at the tree line. He was perhaps 5 feet 10 inches with white hair cut close, and he wore a gray suit that had been expensive 20 years ago. And he walked the way old men walk when their knees have started to go, not slowly, not weakly, but with a precision that said, I have decided in advance exactly how many steps to take. He walked to the center of the room. He looked at his sister's husband, Pietro. Salvatore, Dodiciani, 12 years, Dodiciani. Salvatore turned to Chloe. He did not bow. He looked at her for a long time, then he said in Italian very softly so that the 7 families could hear, Filia, di Marco Benedetti, Dio mio. Daughter of Marco Benedetti, I am the man who killed your father. I am here so that you can say it out loud. The room went still. Chloe had not expected that. She had not expected him to take her work from her in the first minute. She had prepared herself for 36 hours to open the notebook and read for 40 minutes, and put the weight on him one page at a time. And instead, he had walked into the room, and he had put the weight on himself. She understood slowly why. He was not trying to be forgiven. He was trying to deny her the pleasure of unmasking him. He was stealing the ending. Chloe lifted her chin. Salvatore, yes, sit down. He blinked. Miss Bennet, sit down. Salvatore, he sat. The 7 families watched. Chloe walked to the center of the room. She placed the leather notebook on the long wooden table in front of her. She opened it to the first page, the page in her father's handwriting that said, "For my daughter, if she ever decides she wants the truth." She did not read that page was hers. She turned to the second page, and in a voice that carried, a voice that had been built over 7 years of, "Yes, ma'am, no, sir," in a 12-hour shift at Leora, a voice that Marco Benedetti had taught his daughter to use only when she meant every single word. She read in Italian the 41 murders of Salvatore Rowe. She read for 38 minutes. She did not skip a single name. She did not skip a single date. She did not skip a single location. And when she was finished, she closed the notebook, and she looked across the table at Salvatore Rowe, who had not moved, who had not spoken, whose face, for the first time in the entire evening, for the first time perhaps in 45 years, had become the face of a man who had been seen. Salvatore, yes, Miss Bennet, the ground is not warm. He looked up. The ground, Salvatore, is not warm. My father is in the ground. It is cold. It has been cold for 7 years. I wanted you to know that before the 7 families decide what happens next. I wanted you to know that you were wrong. The ground is not warm. Being forgotten is not the worst punishment. Being remembered, Salvatore, as exactly what you were, is worse. And now, Salvatore, you will be remembered by 7 families, by your sister, by every child born into this life for the next 100 years. Not as Silas Rossetti, not as Stephen Rowe, but as Salvatore, a boy from Newark who stole a name and who killed my father for trying to tell the truth. That is how you will be remembered. For as long as these 7 men in this room have tongues in their mouths, that is how you will be remembered. She closed the notebook. She picked it up. She looked at Don Alfio Caruso. Don Alfio, figlia mia, I am finished. I am leaving the room. What the 7 families decide to do with Salvatore is not my decision. It is theirs. I have done what I came to do. Don Alfio nodded once. Chloe walked toward the door. She did not look back. She did not need to look back because behind her, before she reached the door, she heard the sound of Don Alfio standing up slowly and the sound of 6 other chairs around the table standing up with him. And she heard in her peripheral vision Salvatore Rowe begin, for the first time in the entire evening, to speak, but she did not hear what he said because Lorenzo Vitiello was holding the door open for her, and Pietro Vitiello was on the other side of the door waiting. And as Chloe stepped through it, Pietro took her hand and he placed it through the crook of his arm, and he walked her out of the Caruso compound, and he walked her to the car, and he opened the car door for her, and he said very quietly in Italian, "Your father is home now, my child." Chloe got in the car. She did not cry. She had kept her promise. She flew home to New York 3 days later. Her mother was waiting at the apartment in Queens. Her mother was sitting on the couch with Arthur, and Arthur's finger was in a proper splint. And Arthur's face when he saw her walk through the door did something Chloe had not seen it do since he was 11 years old. It crumpled the way a young boy's face crumples when his older sister comes home from somewhere he has been afraid she would not come home from. Her mother stood up. Her mother did not run to her. Her mother walked slowly, the way a woman walks toward a daughter who has been carrying something too heavy for too long. And her mother put both her hands on Chloe's face, and she looked at her for a very long time, and she said in Italian, "Porta a casa," you brought him home. Chloe nodded, and then, finally, after 4 days of a promise she had kept, Chloe Benedetti Bennett allowed herself to cry. Lorenzo came to the apartment 6 weeks later. He knocked on the door at 7 in the evening. He was wearing a gray sweater and jeans, and he did not look like a mafia boss. He looked like a 35-year-old man who had taken a long train ride to see a woman he had known for 2 weeks in Sicily, and had thought about every day for 6 weeks after. Chloe opened the door. "Lorenzo, Chloe, you came. I told you I would on the terrace, do you remember? I remember every word you said on that terrace, Lorenzo." He did not move from the doorway. "Chloe, yes, I am not here as Lorenzo Vitiello. Then who are you here as?" "I am here as the man who asked on a terrace to be in the same city as you for some portion of the rest of his life." "I have not stopped asking, Chloe. I have simply been asking for 6 weeks into rooms you were not in. I am asking tonight into the room you are in." Chloe looked at him. She thought about her father. She thought about her mother. She thought about Arthur, who was at that moment doing his homework at the kitchen table behind her, humming quietly, alive. She thought about Pietro Vitiello standing at the door of a car in Catania, telling her "Porta a casa adesso." She thought about the notebook, which was now locked in a safety deposit box in Manhattan, and which she had not opened since the morning in Catania, and which she did not plan to open again for a very long time, and she thought about the man in front of her. Lorenzo, yes, come in. He came in, and Chloe Bennett, the waitress who had walked up to a table at Leora 6 weeks earlier, with $42,000 of debt on her shoulders, and a dying brother on a kitchen floor, and nothing in the world to her name except a language her father had taught her at a kitchen table in Queens, closed the door behind him. She did not know yet what the next year of her life was going to look like. She did not know yet whether the two of them would make it, but she knew this. She had walked into the most dangerous room in the Mediterranean, and she had walked out of it on her own 2 feet, and she had brought her father home, and she had kept her brother alive, and she had refused the bill she was not required to pay, and she had chosen at every single crossroad the woman her mother had raised her to be, instead of the woman her father's list would have made her. She had stolen no one's heart, she had kept her own, and that Chloe Benedetti Bennett finally understood as she turned to face the man who had traveled across an ocean and across a city and across the longest 6 weeks of his life to stand in her small kitchen in Queens. That, in the end, was the only ending a story like hers was ever allowed to have. And it was enough, it was more than enough, it was everything.